the 7th Uganda presidential election 2016. Today, as I dig deep into the Uganda presidential election of 2016, it reminds me of what my dear departed father told me once when we were sitting at Wang-oo, the fireplace. He said, "Son, a man without a culture is a man without destiny. A man without 𝐷𝐞𝐬𝐢𝐿𝐻 is a man without a homestead. A man who refuses to accept his own culture is a man who have no dignity." And as I look at the elections that had been taking place in Uganda since independence, it reminds me exactly about what I was talking about. He once told me, "My son, you see, I'm sitting here with your uncle. He's a member of the Democratic Party. And myself, I am a supporter of Uganda People's Congress. Now we are sitting together. We are eating together. But wait, when the time comes, the same people will start killing themselves. The same people will turn against one another." And what he told me when I was growing up is exactly what is happening today. If you look at the National Register movement, they created from the beginning a party one could call a no-party democracy. And they are ruling Uganda until today. The showing of the mustard seed is very visible all over Uganda landscape. When they began, they banned all political parties from participating in election. It was a one-party system that developed into what we now call a multi-party democracy in Uganda. When they started in 1996, the NRM as a party defeated Semugere and Mayanza by a landslide. Believe me, the so-called international domestic observers described the vote as valid. Again, in 2001, they won a majority vote against 𝐏𝐶𝐺, despite a protest against the results, which was full of massive voters' intimidation and rigging. The outcome of that election was accepted by the Supreme Court of Uganda. And that was the beginning of the death of democracy in our home state. In 2005, a constitutional agenda was held to restore a multi-party political system, lifting 19 years of a one-party system in Uganda. The party in power had already built up a structure for a no-party democracy. And they knew at that moment that whatever happens and whatever they do, it is only one party system that will benefit. And it is happening up to today. And since then, they have never lost an election in Uganda. And believe me, they are not going to lose any election that is scheduled for the future. And it tells you a story how the National Resistance Movement took all Ugandans for a ride on a yellow bus, poverty trips. We are still in the same bus. And now it moved from a yellow bus to a yellow border border, which is being distributed all over Uganda to allow the government in power win the election of 2021. It is hard to believe that any election that is going to be held today or yesterday is going to change what started a long time ago when they came to power. We as Ugandans, we have very short memory. And if we don't change our mindset as the people of Uganda, we are going to wake up one day and find ourselves floating in an unknown sea, because you'll have nothing left. As my dear departed father used to say, if you inherit a land that does not belong to you, you will always be a visitor. what is happening around our home state today is that people had been divided into units. You take one district with less population, you cut it into half, and you create a structure which most of us call it bringing service closer to the people. That is a lie. We are not bringing services close to the people. We are bringing corruption closer to people. All those districts around Uganda is being managed and controlled by the appointee of the government. From LC 1 to 5 or resident district commissioners who works for the president. And all those people who are working there as officials of the government are, if not from the district, you have very few people who come from that same district. Maybe the women representative, the member of parliaments who are elected from that district, but the majority of the officials taking care of the government business are those young boys who finish university and they have relatives in higher places, and the one who are posted to those districts and they are looting those districts very badly. A few days ago, I was talking to a friend who told me that all these people who are being posted to different districts are there to earn money. They know that the local people don't have money. And they're ganging up with some wealthy foreigners, buying up lands, convincing these poor people who don't have anything to sell their land. And that had been happening for a very long time. But let me remind you all that you can force people or convince people or humiliate people until they sell you those lands. And a lot of people with money are buying land everywhere in Uganda today at the cost of the local people. We all know that these people are sailing in poverty, but still we send those officers who are demanding a lot of money. If you go with a problem, if you ask the LC to come and solve a local dispute in the villages, they'll ask 10 to 30,000 Ugandan shillings before they come and sit down and solve your problem. To me, that is not bringing services closer to the people. That is a robbery. That had been happening. All those local LC 1 to 5, you want them to solve your problem, you have to pay them. You want them to come and help you and make a dispute at home better, you are mistaken. They can even make it worse. Some of you may be wondering, why? I'd been going through the parliamentary election and the presidential election. That is history in making. Whatever happened since 1962, when we involve ourselves in election, is a part of our history. And that part of the history has to be kept alive. That part of the history will help us in future to know exactly what happened to us when we got our independence. You see, the colonial era in itself was a project. And when they gave us independence, we thought that we are going to be free, that we are going to have a fair election. But that system itself was a part of the project that started a long time ago, even before we got independence. And our leaders, the people of Uganda, we seem not to flash back and look and understand what had been happening to us since independence. Instead, we are just fighting one another. If you look today, people have started preparing for the 2021 election. New political parties pop up. And if you see how many Ugandans are running to join that party, they are leaving one party, going to the other one, because they know that there is going to be sharing of the win if the time comes. This should be a reminder to all of us that the moment that we saw the time limit was abolished in 2005, there was a time we should have known that things are falling apart. That is when we should have known that the generation calling themselves the Bush War revolutionaries, a part of a guerrilla armies that claimed to have toppled the previous government, was there to stay, was there to enrich themselves. Oppositions had been arrested, put in prison, and because of greediness, because we are greedy, now you see a lot of people running up and down to join the new political parties, looking for what they call a fair share, but there's not going to be any fair share at all. So let me remind you that the dirty young men and women who are being recruited in the forces today to be stationed at the hot spots will give you a hard time in 2021. So when the time comes, let's hope 2021 will be a turning point for the people of Uganda. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe. I will be back.